My name is Joe. 20 years ago, my wife and I moved to Lake County with our 4 young children and settled down. In that time, we've worked, worshiped, played, and raised our family. Today, I've met the people and discovered the businesses and organizations that make up a vibrant, dynamic community. Join us as we share with you what makes South Lake great. I'm Joe, and Joe knows South Lake. And welcome. Happy Tuesday. Yes, I am back in the studio. Don't freak out. I am not here for a regular everyday. I came into the studio today for a very special show with our representative here in Florida 15, Congressman Ross Spano. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. It's good to be back with you.
It's good to see you here. You know, I told the congressman before we started that I would do my gratitude check. And what I am grateful for today is being an American and having leaders and representatives like Congressman Spano. You know, just the ability for us as regular people, just a guy from a little town, to be able to call up the congressman's office, to get this coordinated with him, for him to be so willing to come on and speak directly to you through a guy that does not have the reach of all the big media. I just really am grateful for that. It just says an awful lot, not just about the country that I live in, but about the state and the community that I live in. Thank you, Congressman, for all that you do for us.
Well, Joe, it's a pleasure to be with you, and that's my job. That's my job. I'm a public servant, and I work for you, and so shame on me if I'm not available to you.
Well, I think that, I belong to an organization. All their leaders are considered trusted servants, and we're reminded of it every time we have a meeting. And I've always felt if our leaders had a little more of that mentality, which you do, that we would all be better served. And I really appreciate it. You know, Congressman, we're going to jump right into this because your time, I'm sure you have a lot of congressional stuff to do. So I don't want to take too much of your time. Please give us an idea. You know, since we spoke, I think a month ago, there have been a lot of changes. It's a fast-moving situation. Can you just give us a general update? We know that the third bill passed, which is cool.
Yeah.
So we're going to have questions about that update. But if you just give us a general idea, how is Florida situated to handle the health care? What's the national outlook?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. It's been a month, man. It seems like we were just here talking to you, but a lot has transpired in the last 4 weeks, including that Phase 3 coronavirus bill that you just referenced. And I'm glad we got that passed. As a conservative, I think we may have talked about this, but if not, as a conservative, if you had asked me even 2 months ago, would you have ever imagined in your wildest dreams that you would be voting in favor of a $2.2 trillion stimulus bill? I would have said, what? Why? Our economy is in the strongest position it's been in 60 years. Why in the world would we need to do something like that? So the entire landscape of everything has changed, and so we have a responsibility as leaders to respond to that, and so we did that about 2.5 weeks ago. It's been now. We passed that Phase 3 coronavirus bill, and it did a number of things. It provided funding for our hospitals, and it provided funding for free coronavirus testing and a number of other things. It also included about $350 billion in support for small business owners, and I hope we'll have an opportunity this morning to talk about that in some detail, because I think a lot of the folks that are listening to you are interested in that. And then over the last 2 weeks, we've seen that rolled out. But let's talk about the health part of this. As you all know, we've had some hot spots around the country, including New York City and New Orleans, and even now in recent days, Detroit and Chicago, even here in Florida, the Dade and Broward area have been some hot spots, I guess you would say, for our state specifically. But I think the things that we've done in terms of the social distancing that the president has encouraged, and that municipalities and counties and some states around the country have implemented, I think has been helpful. We've seen a depression of that curve. You hear about it all the time, probably ad nauseum. Maybe you never heard about it before the last month, but the transmission
You were in a
curve
cave, right?
yeah, we're all experts in the transmission curve now, right? But anyway, so the hope and the expectation was to press the transmission curve down so that our hospitals and our medical facilities would not be overwhelmed by a spike in the curve that we were concerned might not allow us to have the facilities and the resources necessary to treat everybody. And I think that has been highly successful. And we're even beginning to get numbers. Hopefully this is encouraging to the folks that might be listening in the last few days, that shows what had been projected in terms of the number of overall deaths in the country, what had been projected as the top of that curve is now getting closer to us, which means we're going to be over this sooner than we thought. So I hope that's encouraging to you, encouraging news. As recently, I think as last week, the projected deaths total had been adjusted downward from 100,000 to now to 60,000. And then here in the last few days, we have numbers that indicate that even that number is high. And as we continue to get numbers in over the next couple of days, I think the number of deaths that we can expect will be even much lower than 60,000. We had initially expected here in Florida for the height of that curve to be May the 8th. Now that's projected to be April the 23rd. Good news. I think certainly as I said, these continued numbers come in, that projected height of that transmission curve will even get to us sooner. So maybe even over this weekend. Wouldn't that be great if we knew that this weekend that we were on the road back to normalcy? And so anyways, so that's kind of the healthcare picture, and the news is positive. I think we kind of stay the course, and I know it's been tough on small businesses particularly. And what we've done, I think, with particularly what we call the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program, there have been some glitches, some hiccups, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But overall, over the last 10 days since the implementation of that program, there have been $230 billion committed to help small businesses. And so I think this is unprecedented in the history of our nation to have a government program like this roll out less than 1 week from passage of the legislation, and then within 10 days of the initiation of the program, to have that kind of money committed and already beginning to hit the accounts of small businesses. And remember, I'll just end here, and then we'll take some questions, and maybe I'm sure you have questions. But the rationale, the public policy reason for this PPP program was to encourage small businesses to retain their staff. If you're a sole proprietor or a gig worker, an independent contractor, to encourage you to stay the course, to give you the resources necessary to pay yourself and your employees for a period of 8 weeks, so that when this crisis is over, we're all still in a position to get this economy back up and running quickly. That's the rationale. We'd rather see people stay on payroll than now give up, close their doors, and have all their people file for unemployment. That's not what we want. We want people to be we were in a stronger position economically in our nation, a month ago to withstand something like this, and I think we will. But we have to have small businesses and their people. You remember, small businesses employ half the people in our country. So the extent that we can support small businesses and make sure that those businesses are intact and ready to get back in the saddle, I like to say, more quickly, the better off we're going to be back on that track to normalcy.
And that's a great point, is that the whole purpose of this was to keep people paid. And, we actually have a graphic here that I'm going to bring up. You probably can't see it from your end, but it goes through the Paycheck Protection Program. Your communications director, Daniel, sent this to me. It's the Know Your Options, came out of your office. And it goes through some of the uses and the amounts. It's really actually a great graphic. I'm sure people can see this on your website. So what I'd like to, it says, on the bottom it says, for more information, visit spano.house.gov. I encourage the viewers to reach out to that. What I'd like to talk about is, can you give us an overall summary, just really quickly, about what it is? I mean, what is it? I think there's a lot of confusion about what it is, who gets it, what it's for. Can you just give us a basic summary of that?
I sure can. So it, as I said a little bit earlier, the program allocated $350 billion. As an aside, I think we're probably going to be allocating an additional probably $250 billion That's how successful the program has been in these first few days. But essentially what it does is it allows employers, small businesses, right, and as defined by SBA, Small Business Administration guidance, these are employers that have 500 employees or less, but more particularly, I think, for purposes of this call and the people that I've been hearing from, the people that I represent, and from my own history, we're talking about what we consider really truly small businesses, right? So a handful of people that work together, maybe 10, 20, 30 employees, even if you're an independent contractor, you have the ability to go to your local lender, and now we have over 3,000, as I recall, is the latest number, lenders across the country. These are banks, community banks, these are credit unions, and now we even have what we call fintech companies, financial tech companies online that are actually processing these loans. So you have the ability to get a loan / grant from the federal in a loan that is guaranteed 100% by the federal government in an amount up to 2.5 times your monthly payroll. Okay? And so if you use that loan for the purposes intended, which is to keep your people employed, and you also have the ability to use up to 25% of that for rent, for interest on a mortgage payment, for your utilities, for interest on debt incurred prior to February 15th of this year. So as long as you use that money for the intended purposes, the money turns into a grant. So the loan is forgiven completely. That's a pretty good deal. Again, as a conservative, you're surprised to hear me say that. But these are unprecedented times, and we would rather keep people employed than filing for unemployment. So we're going to get a return on this if people stay employed and they're able to get rocking and rolling. So that's how the program works. You don't go through the SBA, which is a government entity that, frankly, doesn't have the capacity and the bandwidth to process this number of loans. So what we've done is we've allowed lenders across the country that I defined earlier, banks, credit unions that participate, and also now fintech institutions, to extend these loans. So what you do is you call your lender, you fill out a short application. Under the law, as we passed it, you're not required to offer up collateral. You're not required to give a personal guarantee. All right. And the idea is that the law requires that once you're approved, the money has to be provided to you within 5 to 10 days. We knew it was necessary to get liquidity in the hands of small businesses quickly, because many of us as small business owners, we don't have the ability to float and pay 2, 3, 4 payrolls. We're out of business by that point. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's the loan program. That's the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program. And I want to emphasize it also includes independent contractors. So if you're a one-person shop, right, and you get paid on a 1099, you still have the ability to get a loan for yourself up to 2.5 times what your average payroll was last year, for instance. If you're a new company and you just started this year, you can use what your average payroll was from January 1 of this year to February 31st of this year. So it also includes startups. So that's kind of a general idea of what the program is.
So obviously there have been some hiccups, and I'm sure your office is hearing from the same people I'm talking to, because I talk to business people every day.
Oh yeah.
The concept is, it seems to be the small guys, those ones you just talked about, is they're being denied by a lot of banks. And so what do you see as the hiccups? I mean, because I in all honesty, I am recommending, a lot of people are asking me for a recommendation of bankruptcy lawyers. And I'm encouraging. I'm like, look, I know it looks bad. Stay the course. Don't drop that $2,500 yet. Wait till it has. Let's see what we can do. I've actually referred several of them to your office and your websites, because that's what you guys are there for. You got to go straight to the horse's mouth for the information. What encouragement can you give those guys? Somebody that has 1 or 2 employees, and the bank has said, well, you never had a credit card. I know you've been in business, and this is actually a guy I know. Yeah. He's never had a credit card, been in business 20 years, always worked in cash, always been profitable, always used a debit card because he didn't want debt, and he's turned down because he's never borrowed money from the bank. So what do you say to those people? I mean, is there a recourse, a reapplication? an appeal?
Yeah, no, these are great questions, and these are similar to some of the concerns and the complaints that have been voiced to me. Very quickly, before we go into some detail on that, I want to reiterate what you mentioned in terms of our office's willingness to help. And so that's what we're here for. If you run into a problem and we can't, or whatever that problem may be, look, I can't find a lender. I can't get my bank to call me back, whatever. If it's something that we can engage on, we certainly will do that. And so I'd like to encourage you to call our office. Our office in Lakeland, which serves the South Lake area as well. The number there is 863-624-8215. 863-624-8315. And so feel free to call that. Also, I would encourage you, as you mentioned, to go on the website, spano.house.gov. I humbly assert that I think we've got more information on this PPP program than any other member of Congress on their website. We've got frequently asked questions. We got a list of available lenders. We even have a portal there for you to submit a question if you can't get your answer to your question that you've looked diligently for. So please go to our website. All right, so I'm going to address some of the commonly voiced issues that I've heard from small business owners, one of which is the one you just mentioned. Unless I have an open credit account with my bank, they're not going to extend the loan to me. That was something that we heard a lot of, and Bank of America was actually, I think, the largest lender that took that position early on. Fine, you've got an account with us, but you need to open a credit account. Well, what kind of craziness is that, right? And after some political pressure, and Senator Rubio is actually, I think, largely responsible for turning the heat up on Bank of America, they changed their tune, and as of this past Saturday, changed their policy to begin extending loans regardless of the fact that you did not have an open credit account. Now, I've also heard from employees, so I think you'll begin to see some of the traditional banks that took that position change their tune. We also have had a growing number of lenders participating in the program and getting, as an aside real quickly, so initially, if you were a pre-approved SBA lender, you were in the queue first. Many of our community banks that were not previously SBA lenders did not get online and get access to what we call the E-Tran portal for SBA application purposes until late last week, or in a few cases, as of even yesterday was the first that they were able to get on, okay? So there were just a few of the larger banks that were doing it. If you didn't have an account, good luck. So I heard from constituents and friends that said, I don't have an account with Bank of America. I don't have an account with Wells Fargo. I don't have an account with... And they're not giving me an opportunity. So, but I think now that we have more and more lenders on the program that have the ability to process the loans, and I think now that we have fintech companies, online institutions that are giving loans, you're going to have more ability as a small business owner to get access to someone who can process this loan for you. So what I would encourage you to do in that context, go to our website. We have a list of approved lenders, which includes some of these fintech companies. I would encourage you to go down that list and call a number of different people. It may take you 4 or 5 calls before you find somebody who's going to extend the loan to you and process your application, but do that. Don't give up after just 1 or 2 tries, okay? So that's one of the questions we've had. Here's another concern that we've had. Some banks were tapped out. They said, look, I can lend up to this amount, and we're already tapped out. But what we did, the Federal Reserve has taken a couple of steps to open what's called a secondary market to purchase some of these loans off of the books of these lending institutions to free up lending capacity. All right. So now we're seeing that. In addition, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury adjusted the ratios that banks have to meet. They can only have so much debt on their books. We've adjusted that a little bit to allow them to raise that number a bit, and that's now allowed the banks to increase the number of loans. So that has been addressed, I think, in large part. Here's something else we heard from a lot of folks.
Just give me 1 second. We brought up your website, and we're scrolling through it, and I just want to encourage people. There's a lot of links here, a lot of great information. I think I would have to agree with the congressman, at least from my research, is that this is probably one of the most comprehensive sources of information on this subject. I don't know of it. Of course, your work on the Small Business Committee has been amazing, and I think this is part of the result of it. Is that your is that this is the result? Is you've been able to give us a resource for how this works and some places we can turn. Now, we have some viewers outside of Florida, and I think some of this information appeals to anybody in the country. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This applies to businesses in all over the country and even in the territories, U.S. territories.
So I didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to point that out because we were scrolling through it, and I just wanted people to know that that's what that was. Go ahead, please, with your point.
So just a couple of other commonly expressed concerns. The system is too slow. I can't access it, and so the SBA has added over the last several days mainframe capability, server capability that's going to improve that. I think you'll see a benefit here in the next few days, and if you haven't already. And then the last thing I'd mention, when am I going to get my money? I've heard from businesses. All right, I've made the application, right, and I've even gotten approval. I'm suffering. I need to know when I'm going to get the money. The law requires lenders to make payments within 5 to 10 days, so you can expect to receive your money in that period of time. And if you don't, you need to reach out to my office because that's not proper. Okay,
great. That's all great information. And, the other span that this hits is the individual assistance under the CARES Act. Okay, and the CARES Act was a great idea. And again, as a conservative, I don't usually encourage just handing a check out. There's special circumstances. We need people to be able to stay in their apartments and pay their bills. If you can't keep the electric and the lights on, and the water running, then, having a recovery later doesn't help. One of the issues we're seeing is, give us, a brief outline of how this is going to work, who it applies to. Is it every taxpayer? Is it only employees of corporations? And so give us an idea of the basic of that.
Yeah, so it's every single taxpayer in the country, and even senior citizens who aren't taxpayers, and it also includes dependent children. And so the way it works is there's an amount of $1,200 allocated for every adult. And $500 allocated for dependent children. And that money, if you have information from your last tax return that allows the IRS to deposit money directly into your account, that will be done. As a matter of fact, the first 80 million Americans received that direct deposit yesterday. And so over the next week or two, those direct deposits will be included. And some of the questions we get here is, what if I didn't what if I didn't make enough money to file a tax return in 18 or 19? You're still eligible to receive this. There's actually on my web page, there's a link to the IRS site that will allow you to insert your information, your direct deposit information that you can include there to get your money deposited. If the IRS doesn't have that direct deposit information, they will in the next day or two, as I understand, have a link that you can go in and insert your direct deposit information if you have filed taxes. And if they just don't, and you don't go do that, then ultimately the last stage of this process is going to be to send actual checks, paper checks, out to everybody else.
Can I ask you a question about that? Because I've actually heard this and had this question myself. Because generally when tax time comes around, a lot of people aren't filing directly with the IRS. They're getting direct deposit, but they're using something like TurboTax or Tax Act or any of these other secondary sites, which are usually very good sites. I don't want to say I'm not downing those things. They're a great tool for a lot of people. But does that count? I mean, if I did my taxes through Tax Act and my direct deposit information is filed with them, does that mean it's filed with the IRS, or should I be looking for a link?
No, absolutely, because that information is forwarded on to the IRS by that third-party entity that you're doing your taxes through. So the IRS has that information. Nothing that you need to do.
Great. So, and I'm sure just like the business people, the individuals are all wondering, and I think you just said a little bit of it, when can I expect my money? If I heard 80 million people got it, but I didn't get mine, should I be worried?
Yeah.
At what point should I be going, where is my money?
So the goal from Secretary Mnuchin and Treasury and the administration was to get all of these direct deposits out by the end of this week, as I understand it. So I would say if you're sure that the IRS has your direct deposit information and you haven't received it in your bank by, say, the early part of next week, then maybe you ought to start asking questions.
Okay.
If they don't have your direct deposit information, you probably can expect to wait at least another couple of weeks, maybe to the end of April, before you can get a paper check.
Wow. Perfect. Hey, last thing I want to talk about, and I talked again about this with Daniel. And by the way, I want to say once again, Daniel has been great. I love your staff. Samantha here locally. Daniel there's been helped me work out a lot of these questions. It was just absolutely amazing. I want to give kudos where kudos is due. And Samantha's my girl. I'm going to say on air. She's the bomb diggity.
She is. We're definitely blessed to have Samantha.
I did want to bring up, because Daniel had pointed it out, and again, one of the reasons I appreciate it was a question I had not thought of, even though I've seen some of these emails come into my inbox, scams, is about we can get you your money faster, can you tell us about what some of the scams are and what kind of consumer protections you might have out there for that?
Yeah, so I would say the best rule of thumb is if someone's calling you on the phone alleging that they're with the IRS or they're with Treasury or they're with some other entity that can help you get your money deposited, these individual checks early, that's going to be a scam. If the IRS, the government doesn't communicate with us by phone, all right? They're going to send you a letter. They're going to send you some hard copy you can hold in your hand, all right? So the default is to assume that you get a call from some government entity, that's going to be a scam. Now, I will say, as far as this Paycheck Protection Program, there are some third-party entities out there that are calling small businesses that are saying, hey, if you've had a problem applying for the PPP loan, we can help, all right? So there are some legit entities out there doing that. If you have a question about whether there's an institution out there that's calling you that's legitimate, I'd say go onto our website and look at that approved list of lenders, and if you can match somebody up on that list with the person that's calling you, they're probably going to be a legit organization.
Okay. All right. I really appreciate that. Now, have you heard anything about email? And again, I say emails because I've seen a couple come through that, because I'm hyper aware of these things, I'm like, no, that doesn't sound too legitimate to me. If you need me, if you're the government, you shouldn't need my address and you sent me an email. Why do you need my Facebook profile? And certainly if anybody asks for your banking information, and even to be aware of not clicking on a link that you don't trust.
Great point.
Scammers are going to use this to take advantage, right?
And I hate that, and they always do. There's always the bad apples out there that ruin it for the rest of us. But yeah, to a certain extent, you really have to protect yourself. So just be wise. Take those steps that Joe just mentioned. Don't click on any links. Don't give any information out over the phone, over the internet. The government's going to communicate with you through the old snail mail, the hard mail. So, and I think probably being cautious and being overly cautious is not a bad thing. So probably not a good idea to be communicating with anybody that purports to be a government entity in any other way than call the government, right? If you have a question, at the end of the day, there's numbers on our site. You can go call the government and ask, say, did you communicate with me about this issue? But be very careful, be very cautious, because Joe, you're right. Unfortunately, there's just bad people out there that want to take advantage of the rest of us.
And Congressman, I want to switch directions. We're running out of time. I know that you guys there's a lot of news about a phase 4, and without getting political, I know there's some challenges getting the entire House of Representatives back to Washington. Can you give us a little idea what's coming, what's next, what we can expect down the road?
Yeah, so from our conference's perspective, from the Republican conference's perspective, we think that we need to immediately, this is not phase 4, this is just kind of a plussing up of the existing PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. We think we need to allocate $250 additional billion for that. The initial $350 billion is probably going to be spoken for at least by the early next week. So I would say that's what we need to do initially. So the Democrats would like to tie that issue with some other funding for some other things. I think it's premature to do that. That money, we're still processing that money. We don't even know if that additional money is going to be necessary. I just don't think it's wise to allocate that money right now. That may be necessary in, as you say, a phase 4 bill. If we have a phase 4 bill, my assumption, and the president, I think, is in support of the phase 4 bill. I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I think we've got to be very wise. We just got finished spending $2.2 trillion. We got to be cautious. And so, but I think some of the things you may see in that, or you may see an infrastructure package, right? That's something the president has been very vocal in support of doing. It's something that Democrats probably, I think, would support. And I think in terms of getting the economy back going again, if it can be a program that we're confident is using the American taxpayers' money wisely, it would be something that I would probably be supportive of. So I think that's probably going to be the major piece, at least from the president's perspective, that any phase 4 bill would include, and that's going to be a major infrastructure investment. I think the Democrats are also talking about probably plussing up monies for hospitals, giving additional money for state and local municipalities that have in their opinions, the monies allocated in the phase 3 program were not sufficient, so they want more. That'll probably be, it's something that, and look, I don't want to get too political here this morning, but something I think the Democrats probably are going to ask for is money for the election process. And I hope they don't do what they did last time, and that is throw lots of other things completely unrelated to the coronavirus crisis and the demand that we address those things. I'm optimistic, and I don't think that they will do that. I hope they won't. But anyway, so those are some of the things that I think will be included in the phase 4 bill.
Great. And just before we go, is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Final thoughts? Something that you got coming up? Anything you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, no, I agree. Thank you, Joe. I just say thank you for having me. Anybody that's on the program this morning, I'm grateful that you're here. If you watch it later, it's a good opportunity, I think, to get up to date. And thank you for giving me the chance to speak directly to you. I just want to tell you, we continue to be here for you. As a former small business owner, I understand what you're going through. We went through the 08, 09 Great Recession, and frankly, this is probably going to be a little bit worse than that, but we went through that. So I know what you're going through. I understand the challenges and the decisions that you have, that you're facing. I just want to encourage you to hang in there. We need you. Our economy and our economic system is dependent in large part on the success of small business owners. So I'm here for you to help you however I possibly can. I want to encourage you again to reach out to us at our office, on our website. If you don't have the information there, please call us. I will do everything I can to go to bat for you and help you however I can. Thank you, Joe, for your involvement and for trying to keep the community informed. And we'll continue to be fighting and advocating for you. We're just grateful for you. And God bless everybody. And stay safe and stay well. And we'll look forward to a plan here in the very, very, very near future that will propose a pathway forward back to normalcy for all of us.
Well, I really thank you, Congressman. I can't tell you personally how much it means to me you'd be willing to do this, but certainly for even our small community here on the eastern edge of Florida 15, I really, really appreciate you. And again, I want to encourage people. It's leaders like this. This recession we may not even have a recession. Nobody knows, right? If we can get the country open, there is hope. Certainly the beauty is we were far stronger going into this than we were the last time. And while we may see some lows, it's going to be different, and it certainly won't last as long. So thank you. I want to thank the Congressman. We're going to go to commercial break, and when we get back, Joe's final thoughts and Cup of Joe. We'll see you in a minute.
Thanks, Joe.
Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors.
50 West, pre-leasing now in Claremont. A first-of-its-kind commercial development in the Southeast. Contact us today to reserve your spot in this historic development. 50 West, unique, quality, Class A. For more information on leasing, contact Ashley Punn at 407-403-4165. Karen Arlano at 407-948-0767. Or visit lease@50west.com.
Life is better when you're smiling. At Modern Orthodontics, Dr. Alan Wong has changed thousands of lives helping patients achieve the modern smile with braces and clear aligners. Utilizing digital scanning technology, Modern Orthodontics creates in-office 3D models for clearly modern aligners. Modern Orthodontics is conveniently located in Claremont, Apopka, and Bushnell. Call or text us to schedule your free exam and create your modern smile today.
Burgerum, located in the Epic Theater shopping plaza on Highway 27, is the premier destination for gourmet burgers. Using only the freshest ingredients, Burgerum offers a variety of burgers, salads, wings, and a whole lot more. Beef, chicken, lamb, fish, and even veggie. Burgerum has something for everyone, no matter your dietary preference. Burgerum, millions of possibilities, endless combinations.
Hello, my name is Michael Singh with Singh Insurance and Financial Services. Our goal is to build trust based on a clear understanding of how your insurance policy protects you, your family, and even your business. When was the last time you took a good hard look at your insurance coverage? Would you be open to the possibility of reviewing your policy with me? One review of your policy can save you valuable time and money. Call me today to set up a review of what may be available to you.
Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors. Once again, welcome back. I want to say thank you to Congressman Spano. You know, bringing this to you on a regular basis is not easy because we struggle too with the effects of COVID, not necessarily in our body, but in the health of our businesses. My real estate business is affected. Our business here at South Lake TV is affected. You know, but because we're concerned about the community, you know, Congressman Spano is doing what we can, and we're all coming together. I know that here at the station that I'm going to talk tomorrow during the deal of the day about some of the cool stuff we're doing to help businesses keep going. We've done some spots on scene. We're still willing to do spots on scene. There's no cost for those. But even for those ad programs that we are selling, we have given our people a lot of breaks. Okay, we have ads that we're still running, and you know, that doesn't say anything about the health of the business. It says something about, you know, the times that we're in. Everybody's being affected by a lack of income because of less business. So I want you to know that we're in this mix with you, and we are all a team. And I really appreciate Congressman Spano. Look, reach out for these programs. There is no shame in applying. And here's the best part. The worst they can say is no. And then you don't have any less than you have now. But if you spend a couple hours, couple of days filing. Boy, that couldn't happen during the commercial break. If you spend a couple hours or even have to spend a couple of days following up on something like this, going through 4 or 5 or 6 lenders to see if somebody will lend you money to keep your business up and running, if you're, like the congressman said, if you are what they call a gig employee, which means you work job to job as opposed to one steady contract all the time, you know, reach out. The money is there for you too. There's nothing wrong. I, for the first time in my life, filed for unemployment. For the first time I'm 57 years old. I've been working since I was 14. For the first time in my life, I filed for unemployment because the money is there. The money, there is no shame in getting what has been provided for you for an odd time, a strange circumstance that was no fault of your own. So finally, Cup of Joe. Once again, thank you, Congressman Spano and all of his staff. Finally, Cup of Joe today, the spirit of fear. The Bible says, God says in the Bible, I have not given you the spirit of fear. I've given you the spirit of power and of love and a sound mind. There's a reason those three things are in that order. I have given you the spirit of power. That means you have the ability to do something about it. You don't have to sit and be paralyzed. One of the worst things fear does to us is paralyze us. That's the greatest effect and the most dangerous result of fear is for you to do nothing. The second one is love. Reach out to your community. Together, as a community, as a family, as a nation, we will come through this together and be stronger and better for it. And finally, a sound mind. If you can access power, which means take some action, and add to that love and service for your community, your customers, your business, your family, the people in your neighborhood, then you will always have the spirit of a sound mind. And with a sound mind, instead of fear, you will have hope. I heard a quote some years ago. I don't remember where. I'm a self-help junkie. I've read literally hundreds of books on improving myself. And one of the quotes that has always stuck with me is that fear and faith both ask you to do the same thing. Believe something that hasn't happened yet. You know, when we're afraid, when we get overwhelmed, it's because we're worried that it ain't going to come back, or we're not going to open till June, or my business is going to close, or I'll never get that job back. Where am I going to find customer? Am I going to get sick and die? None of that does you any good today. And it all asks you to believe something that hasn't happened. But in faith, I can say, God's got my back. I can say, Jesus loved me and prepared a plan for me. I have the spirit of power and love and a sound mind. I can serve the community. I can reach out to my customers. I can go through my phone and just call everybody on it and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Are you okay? How's your family? What can I do? I've been doing this now for 10, 12 days. Because I just couldn't sit at home anymore. And I am absolutely amazed at the number of people who I haven't talked to in literally years that will pour their heart out on me. Don't be the person that focuses inward. Engage in your faith in something. Look, if your faith has to be in your ability to run a marathon, start training. If your faith is in your ability to build your business, start making a marketing plan. If your faith is in your family, start making phone calls. Work on those relationships. Spend some time with your kids, not telling them what to do, just being with them. You will find at the end of all of this, fear has not served you, but faith has made you better. That's the Cup of Joe. That's me for today. I want to thank once again Congressman Spano and his entire staff for being there for us. He is an amazing guest. I love having him on. Hopefully I can I'm working through his very generous staff to maybe bring on some other representatives of the Florida delegation from the government. Keep tuned in. We are your source of information, not just locally, but on anything happening in the world that affects us here. So anyways, I want to thank him. He's a great guest. If you know somebody that should be a guest on Joe Knows South Lake, please, please, please reach out to me. The information is there. You know what it is. If you know of somebody that has a business that's being affected and would like a highlight, let me know. I am specifically searching for a teacher who was a bricks and mortar teacher and has now made the switch to distance learning, or a parent or student or both, a team who has also made the same transition. I would love to get their perspective. If you are a manager or an owner of a company and you would like to talk about how you're still open and serving the customer and what you're doing to provide for this community, let me know. With that all said, well, am I going long today, Jay? No. Okay. With that all said, I just want to thank you for tuning in and being there. And I want to encourage you. Together we will get through this. There is nothing to fear. We are Americans. This is the best country in the best time in history, in the history of mankind. No place else at no other time have you had the same opportunity and ability as you do in this very moment, even in spite of COVID-19. I want to say thank you for joining us. Once again, thank you to the Congressman. This has been Joe Knows South Lake. I am Joe Carlisle. This was Congressman Roz Spano. And I will encourage you, as the Congressman is using his greatness to bring out the greatness in others, there's greatness inside of you. And you have the ability to bring out the greatness in others. Touch a life, you will change the world. You may never see the change, but it will change nonetheless. This has been Joe Carlisle. I'll see you tomorrow. And I love you. Bye-bye. My name is Joe. 20 years ago, my wife and I moved to Lake County with our 4 young children and settled down. In that time, we've worked, worshiped, played, and raised our family. Today, I've met the people and discovered the businesses and organizations that make up a vibrant, dynamic community. Join us as we share with you what makes South Lake great. I'm Joe, and Joe Knows South Lake. Joe Knows South Lake would like to thank the following sponsors: